Welcome back to the Modus Super Series, where the final is now set. Destiny has prevailed, and it is going to be Tom Sykes against Scott Taylor for the £20,000 first prize, and to call themselves the fifth Modus Super Series champion. We'll be watching all of the action this week in the company of the asset Paul Nicholson. He joins me in the studio now. Well, I suppose we could have just played all the other games and we still would have got to this outcome, wouldn't we?
It hasn't been that easy. Tonight has been enthralling. Great darts, high level of play from players all at times. But the semi-finals just go to show it's not about putting in those obliterating displays all the time. It's about just finding a way to win. And I think it would be really interesting to speak to Scott Taylor and to Tom Sykes at the minute about the emotional roller coaster they've been on over the last few hours, because they both lost their first game of the night. And at that point, you're thinking there's a little bit of doubt as to whether it's going to be your evening. And then everything has turned around since then as they both make the final.
Well, let's round off then those two semi-finals. That game between Taylor and O'Shea, it was always a game that was going to go 50-50. And Taylor just seemed to have that little bit of tenacity that's kind of followed him all week.
Yeah, I think when he saw the finish line, he just ran through it. And the expression changes. He's fairly easy to read, is Scott Taylor, because I think he's got two levels. Level and angry. And then he found the angry to get himself across the line. I don't think he's got any problems with tiredness now. One more game, and it could be history for him. But yeah, John O'Shea has been brilliant the last couple of weeks. I think this will ignite some hunger that he really wanted to find when he came to Portsmouth for the first time, a matter of 9 days ago. And I sincerely think that there are great things ahead for John once again, but Scott Taylor's just a little bit further ahead of him right now.
You tend to see with Scott Taylor, as soon as he bites his bottom lip, then you better be careful, because that's like awakening a Hulk when he's angry.
Yeah, and some people can't play like that. People have said for years that when you make Gary Anderson angry, he's going to put in some sort of performance. But we can start talking about Scott Taylor in the same vein. He's not an angry person when he's in this setting. He's amiable. He gives you honest answers, sometimes very funny answers with his honesty, but he's trying to be honest with himself at the minute, which I think is incredibly impressive. For years now, we have wondered what Scott Taylor was going to do. Is he going to be one of those players who makes a PDC Pro Tour final and then just goes off into the distance, and we talk about him every now and again as someone from Bolton who has done something? He didn't want to be that person. He wanted to create something just a little bit more special, and he might just do that in the next 25 minutes.
But there is an old adversary waiting in his wings as he takes on Tom Sykes in the final. He's been the story of the series from pretty much the first dart he threw in week 10. We saw him as a qualifier last time. He didn't make it through to the final. He won a belt, though, against Chris Quantock. But this time around, we've seen a much better version of him. We've seen a player that's really burst onto the scene.
If you think about the time frame between when he came here for the first time and now, that's a very short space of time. The first time I saw Tom Sykes here, I didn't know a thing about him, and that seems to be a very popular opinion. Even Owen Bates, who was in this studio earlier tonight, was saying exactly that. But now we have someone who we can put pressure on to go and win things. He really is a talented dart player, and when you can come into a Saturday night averaging 97, we have to put him in the same bracket as a Daryl Pilgrim, as some other players who have made a Champions Night, but we may be putting him ahead of someone like Daryl, because someone like Daryl, who has been to 2 of these Champions Nights, he hasn't won here, but he's up against somebody else in this final who's been to 2 Champions Nights and still hasn't won himself.
Did we learn a lot about Tom when that game went 2-2 against one? He came out the blocks really flying, had the opportunity, or thought he had the opportunity to go 3-0 up. Mullenkamp takes the finish out. It then goes back to 2-2. It could have been so easy for things to have gone so wrong so quickly for Tom there.
Yeah, don't underestimate just how much that finish from Mullenkamp in the middle of that match hurt him, because he's thinking, I've missed tops for a 1-1-4, I think it was. I've got double 10 staring me in the face from about 10 feet away, and then he's got to watch a finish like this go. That dart from Ron Mullenkamp is sickeningly good. And look at Tom in the background thinking, how have you hit that? And then he's got to watch him hit the double 16 as well. That is one of the premier finishes we've ever seen on a Saturday night from the Dutchman. But unfortunately, that was the biggest highlight for his night, and he had to leave us after that.
Yeah, so Ron Moulenkamp departs us. This is what we've seen then this evening at the Super Series. The semi-finals have been and gone, but we also had group stage action before. Just to confirm, we lost Reece Colley and Karen Crabtree in the group stage worth of action. Two young players who I'm sure we're going to see again very soon.
Yeah, young players, experienced players. And one of the great things about the Super Series over the last couple of years is that everyone's got their own story. Somebody wants to get back to where they were. Somebody wants to get where other people are now, and we are giving opportunities to people to create their own story. We've seen what Little has done in the last year. Him coming here was a story in itself because we knew what he could do. He's gone on to other things. And who's going to be the face of the Super Series in 2024? If you want to stand up and be that person, you want to get to nights like this and get the job done.
It's got a bit serious because the lights have changed behind us. I think there's a sense that the big game's coming.
Yep, we all live for this game. It's the biggest game we can offer for the most money and the most amount of glory we can offer here under this Portsmouth roof. I've been here for a lot of these nights, but there's been something extra special about this one. It almost reminds me of the first night we had when Graham Usher was playing against Conan Whitehead. We didn't know what these nights were going to be like back then in October 2022. We know what they're like now, and we look forward to these kind of atmospheres. And it's easy for me to sit here, Henry, and say that every Champions Night has been this good. This has been extra special, and that's not recency bias, which has been something we've talked about a lot this week. It's been special because of the level of intensity the players have brought to the stage on behalf of the fans. They can count themselves very proud for what they've done.
And it's fair to say as well, for whoever wins this is career defining for Tom. It brings him a fantastic platform. And for Scott Taylor, a player who would have felt that he should have been involved in nights like this long before now, has got the opportunity to lift that title that maybe his career deserves.
I think deserve is a very strong word. And I think earlier in the week, Scott did say in an interview that he deserves this title. You get what you deserve. But this is a very modest Super Series final. And what I mean by that is the highest payday that Scott Taylor's ever had is £5,000 by winning a week here. He's done that twice. The highest payday for Tom Sykes is by winning a week here. It's very fitting that their next biggest payday is going to be 4 times that in this match. So this place is giving them the platform to do what they want to do.
If Tom Sykes wins this final, could this be one of the most game-changing things we've ever seen at the Modus Super Series? An ADC qualifier going on and lifting the title. It would be a true vindication of the pathways that they're providing.
Unquestionably. You think about each story that has come from series winners. Conan Whitehead, I think the financial aspect for him was huge. It gave him a bit of security. We haven't seen him in a Champions Night since, but I'm very convinced that we're going to see him in another one in the future. Raymond Smith was on a flight back to Australia within 45 minutes. Or he was going to the airport within 45 minutes of winning this one. We haven't seen him again. I'd love to see him again this year, if that's possible. We know what Little has done. As far as Jim McEwen's concerned, he just wants to mosey on in the over 50s category and just be a total nightmare for everybody else. So he's writing his story. But for Sykes, so much is possible. Same for Taylor. They want to be elite players. They both have the capabilities, and this will be the best firework display to get them into the sky of what could be a brilliant career ahead.
Just finally, you didn't give me an answer yesterday. Have you got an answer now?
Do we know who's got the bullseye? Because
Scott Taylor won the ball. Scott Taylor won the ball.
Well, it might just be that, because I can sense this one going the distance. We've only had one series final go the distance, and that was when Raymond Smith beat Matt Clark. And I get the feeling that will be the telling factor. So I'm going to go for Taylor, only just.
Right, let's get it on then. Conan Whitehead, Raymond Smith, Luke Littler and Jim McEwen are the names on the Modus Super Series trophy thus far. A new one is going to be added in around about a quarter of an hour's time. Is it Taylor? Is it Sykes? It's time to find out.
It's the final for Taylor. 2 consecutive championship games. Double hit. We get the final we thought we were going to get.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Modus Super Series here at the Live Lounge in Portsmouth. We are live on Sporty Stuff TV and the Modus Super Series YouTube channel. It's time to meet the finalists. Would you please welcome to the stage from Bolton, Scott Taylor. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage from Castleford, Tom Sykes.
Here we go then. It was a journey that began on November the 7th, and it all comes down to this. The grand final here in Series 6. Scott Taylor against Tom Sykes for the right to call themselves the champion, to pick up the trophy and to win £20,000. Well, they were the two bookmakers' favourites at the beginning of the night, and to quote our colleague Chris Mason, I suppose you never meet a poor bookie, and the winner of this one will enhance not just their bank balance but their career as well. It'll be a big televised title in the pocket of either Scott Taylor or Tom Sykes. A big game needs a big-time commentary team, and we've got just the ticket for you. It's a very good evening for the final time in Series 6 to Laura Turner and Paul Nicholson.
This is the game we've all been waiting for, and it proves that sometimes games are just meant to happen. Both in their prime,
First leg, it's
in their early 30s, looking to get their name on that.
Game on!
The bullseye in the practice room was won by this man, who has already improved on his best ever
93.
run in a Champions Week and on a Champions Night. But with Tom Sykes in his way, he's got a familiar
140.
foe who seems to be winning fans by the day.
He's definitely won over this Portsmouth fan base over here. As you say, possibly down to the clever selection of the shirt, but he has been brilliant all this week, as has Scott Taylor for the last two, and it does feel very fitting that it is these two once again towing the Oki, but this time in the final for the ultimate prize here at the Super Series.
58.
I do wonder as well if Taylor's selection of red might just work against him.
Potentially, at least it's not red and white. Then I think,
98.
yes, that would have been really poor choice.
However, in a final before, Scott has averaged 109
140.
against Andy Bolton when he made Champions Week in Series 3. What he would give for something like that to get his hands on the trophy
58. Scott, you require
and an extra £10,000. He starts the stronger in the first 4 visits.
92.
And he does line up the
Tommy
double,
Rock,
but ironically,
158.
this is the highest finish that Tom has had all week. He's not going to mirror that.
94. Scott, you require 24.
If double 12 works, it'll be a good sign for Scott.
12.
But what if it doesn't?
Tommy requires 64.
Massive early opportunity here for Tom Sykes. 64 required. Needs another single for double 16.
32.
They both miss
Scott, you require
by
12.
fine margins. The last thing Taylor needs is to go around the
No
houses
score.
at the start of the match. That
Tommy
happened
required
earlier when he was
32.
beaten by Ron Meulenkamp. It has happened periodically this week.
He has to move across. It is awkward.
16. Scott, you require 12.
Back to sixes.
Game shot on the
And
first
an early
leg.
lead for Scott Taylor and a chance missed for Sykes. He must break the throw in this match, otherwise he will
Second
not
leg, it's Tom to throw first.
walk away
Game
with the
on.
trophy.
Taylor's one of those players sometimes as well. If he gets the bit between his teeth, he can run away with it. Tom Sykes might
59.
rue that bit of double trouble in the opening leg.
this game proves something very vivid. If you're here at the Super
97.
Series, in the second half of that series, evidence states that you've got a better chance of
140.
making the final and winning it than anything else. Someone from week 12 or week 10 will win this series.
I think if that is a kind of an ongoing trend, perhaps it is
43.
because you can still, it's really recent, you can still feel, you can still remember the feeling of winning that week, and you can bring it here to finals week.
81.
Henry mentioned we started on November the 7th, and it was 6 days after that that Willie Borland won the first week of the series. It feels like an eternity ago.
139.
Just like leg one in this game. We are all living this, but these guys, they're swimming in it.
58. Tommy Maguire, 120.
We saw Sykes take this out to win the match over Moulenkamp earlier. Can he do it again? Single for double.
Great single. Go back to the middle. Or further to the left.
100.
Oh, this
Tommy
would be
125.
hurtful. 15's first, 60 bull. Bullseye.
Game
Monstrous.
shot the second leg. Scott
He is a
Taylor.
monster. When he curls that lip and he says, I
The leg,
refuse
it's
to be
Scott throw
denied.
first. Game on.
Halfway point for Taylor. He was the favourite coming into tonight. His route getting into
96.
this finals night was Group A and Group B. When he won last week,
44.
it was Group A and Group B. And last week he won 4-0 in the final. Is that going to happen again?
He's making very good inroads into repeating the feat.
140.
It's actually the most popular way of winning a Champions Week. Conan Whitehead, A and B.
140.
Raymond Smith, A and B. Luke Littler, Series 4, A and B.
57's got you back 126.
He isn't under pressure,
86.
and he's doing what he needs to do. Sykes is now in real bother.
140.
If Taylor takes
Got
this
you
tops,
require 40.
he's within touching distance. Double 10.
Game shot.
3-0 Taylor, and this will feel very
Scott
familiar.
Taylor.
This crowd has gone quiet, and Tom Sykes
Well,
has gone
it's Tom to
cold.
throw first. Game on.
If he doesn't win 4 straight legs, he'll have to settle for what Graham Usher did, Matt Clark,
96.
Jacob Taylor of Canada, Colin Osborne and Moreno Michaels in the last 5 series.
140.
5 different runners-up. 4 different champions.
And Sykes has had
96.
opportunities to take those opening 2 legs. Did mention earlier, would he rue those early misses? And potentially he is, because
100.
for me, he's just off the pace and found himself once again up against a very strong Scott Taylor.
$95.
By getting that single 19, Tom was not going to leave a finish. And Scott's not going to leave one either.
25.
This might be a time for Scott to just take a big breath and get back to work.
100.
Absolutely all pressure now on Tom Sykes.
Yeah, let him shoulder it. You just give yourself a chance.
55.
Successful dart
Tommy
players have
Rock,
all been in this position where they've had that big lead in a final, and all you want is one chance to get it done.
50.
I think that's sensible from Tom. Imagine if he'd gone for the 60 and the dart landed on the floor for deflection. I hasten to say,
140.
get it hit, Tom. Otherwise, Scott could win.
Double 16.
Game shot
This time he does
four
find the
player,
target.
Tom Sykes.
The crowd once again on their feet, supporting their man, Tom Sykes.
Fifth leg, it's Scott to throw
That's
first.
some sort of brinksmanship right there. He knows if he misses that, that Taylor more than likely
137.
hits double 18.
The facial expressions on Scott Taylor for me says this is the leg he wants to do
60.
it. Doesn't want Tom Sykes to get any closer than he is. Because as you mentioned, we have had those leads in finals. We've seen it here at the Super Series.
93.
You can see them slowly get eaten away and then the pressure is all on you.
96.
Doesn't have to go the 19s route here, but is going to do it anyway. Well, he can go 25 here,
99.
but he knows that he's got time on his side. By getting the single 20 there, he's thinking, well, I'll get a 140 next time and I'll leave a match dart. That's the positive
45.
mindset. Tom is very close to being defeated by Scott Taylor for the second time this week.
132.
And he would be the only player who has beaten him twice this week. That's how good Sykes has been, but it looks like it's not good enough.
140. He's got your required 40.
Double 10.
30.
3 championship darts
So they
missed.
require 160.
This would be brinksmanship of the highest order.
It would have been, but not to be once again for Tom Sykes. Scott Taylor will have more championship opportunities.
45.
It's not the nicest double on the board, but he doesn't care about that.
Got your required 10.
He just wants to go at any double, and that double is double 5.
Game shot and the match. And the Motor Super Series champion, Scott Taylor.
Scott has been sensational for the last 2 weeks, and it is Taylor's turn. He takes Super Series 6 and cashes big at the expense of Tom Sykes. Laura Turner, what a final that was.
Yes, Scott Taylor been absolutely outstanding, as has Tom Sykes all this week, but it is Scott Taylor who finds himself victorious. A 4-1 win. Ended up being a relatively comfortable win for Taylor, but as we said, he's one of those players, he likes to be a front runner. Averages down on what we've seen from them, but 88-18 was enough to see off Tom Sykes, who had an 82-74. No 180s from the two players that delivered the most 180s over the week, but a high checkout there from Scott Taylor of 125. Tom Sykes did try to mount a charge, had that 64 checkout. Thought he was coming back, but 1 from 6 on the outer ring for Tom Sykes. And that ultimately is what cost him in those early legs. But you have to really say kudos to Scott Taylor. He's been here for 2 weeks. He has been professional throughout the whole experience, and he has won the title. Well, Paul has hot-footed it down from the commentary box down to the stage, and he's going to be having a chat with Week 6 champion Scott Taylor.
Scott Taylor, Super Series 6 champion. How does that feel?
It's great, mate. I'm not sure what to say. I've been a long 2 weeks, but I played quite well in most of my games, so I'm happy with how it's gone.
You lost your first game tonight. How were you feeling after losing to Moolenkamp? Did you think that you had a lot to do from there?
I was in big trouble. big trouble. I was lucky. The game against Cam was good. I just get through, and then I knew I'd only needed 2 games, so luckily I got through.
The question that's been asked of you a lot over the last few days about your energy levels. How do you feel now?
Awful. Honestly, awful, mate. Oh, it's just adrenaline, I think. So I felt great when I woke up this morning, and then going into that last game, then I was spent. We're gone.
What was the key to the success? Because you've won 2 back-to-back weeks and your energy levels have been tested, but on the dartboard, what has been the one thing that's seen you through this?
Bottle, I think. Hitting the right shots when I needed to. A lot of it come down to, but I won a lot of games this week, to be fair, so I'm happy.
I know a lot of people here in Portsmouth saw somebody in blue against you in that final and they were cheering for him, but you looked very determined throughout this challenge. How are your emotions right now? Because you're about to get your fingerprints on a trophy that's got some great names on it. How proud are you of the achievement that you've just accomplished?
Amazing, mate. Obviously, it's not sunk in yet, but Tom gave me a few beatings in the group, so I wanted to get him back. He's a good lad and he's a very good player, so I'm happy.
The northwest of England tends to give us some good players. You're in the shadow of the likes of Lisa Ashton, Steve Coote, Paul Williams, these kind of players. You know them all. You can add your name to that list now, but what's the journey going to be this year? 2024 could be a really big year for you.
I hope so. I'm not going to do the challenge though, because it's just time off work and stuff. But hopefully this is just the start now, so we'll see what happens and just take it every day as it comes.
Just before we let you get your hands on the trophy, £20,000 is a lot of money and it's dwarfed your biggest paycheck to date. Do you have any plans for it? What will it do to change your life?
Mate, I've got another baby on the way, so I think she's already spent it, so we'll see what happens.
Sounds very familiar to Series 1 when Conan Whitehead won. Well, here we go. That was Scott Taylor. What we're going to do now is hand you over to our MC, that is Owen Binks.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Would you please show your appreciation for your Series 6 Modus Super Series champion, Scott Taylor!
Presentation, businesslike from Scott Taylor, one of his biggest victories of his career. He takes the £20,000 check, he takes the trophy with him, and he is the man who reigns beneath the gold confetti this evening. He hasn't even taken the trophy with him, and it's straight off stage. It's there, it is his. I promise it is Scott Taylor's trophy, but you know what? It's been absolutely businesslike from first up to even the trophy lift. He's not taking it home.
Yeah, no, he's been outstanding, and like we've said before, not just this week, but 2 consecutive weeks. I mean, he really has put in a shift. I know deserve is the wrong word, but if anyone's work ethic is anything to go by, yes, Scott Taylor is definitely, he's worked very, very hard to get his hands on that trophy and the check.
Well, it really was a fascinating finale, and a fitting finale to Series 6 because of the storylines we had involved in there. Scott Taylor, a player who's been here so many times, he's made it through to a Champions Week, a Champions Night before. Tom Sykes, ADC qualifier, who certainly, well, he did the ADC proud, he did his family proud, and he did absolutely everybody proud in the end. But it is Scott Taylor who runs out the victor in the end in that one. And, well, he adds his name to a real illustrious list of winners as far as this competition is concerned. Conan Whitehead won the very first edition of the Modus Super Series. So Raymond Smith, he's still the lineal champion. Luke Little at winning it a couple of times himself. And of course, Jim McEwen, who's now lost that title of defending Super Series champion. So Scott Taylor joins that illustrious list of names that has won that trophy. And there it is, the magnificent Modus Super Series trophy. Scott may not be holding it, but on that engraving is going to be his name. And that's something you can never take away from him.
Absolutely not. That's it. He's got it there. He's done the job. He's, and like, as I say, he's worked very hard. But like you were just saying there, it really does take 2 to tango, and you have to take your hat off to Tom Sykes. Month after month, whenever we've seen him, he's improved. He's gone one step further. But yeah, I just think there was something about destiny about those 2 meeting in the final, but perhaps a little bit of destiny there for Scott Taylor as well.
Just a word on Tom Sykes, because he has been a breakthrough start for everybody, really, the ADC himself. And you get the sense this isn't going to be the last time he's going to be here.
Absolutely not. No, I think all the players that we've seen here, I'm very hopeful they're all going to be coming back. Obviously, Scott Taylor now has something very big to try and come back and defend. And we've seen it with, with the likes of Jim McEwen. It's quite hard just to get yourself back into Champions Week. But yeah, I've got a funny feeling we're going to be seeing a lot more of Tom Sykes and the rest of the crew here at the Modus Super Series.
And Scott Taylor's got work first thing on Monday morning, 8 o'clock.
Yes, I know. He's been missing for 2 weeks. What's he been doing? Well, he's been doing some very good things here. But yeah, that's the life of a dart player. It's quite hard. It's only the top guys really that can kind of dedicate all that time, become a professional. But hopefully the £20,000 that he's picked up, that will go a long way to help supporting him go forward with his career.
Yeah, I think it was annual leave used very smartly, I think. And do you know what a series it's been, Laura? You know, we struggled either side of Christmas. Yes, a couple of players went on to win their tour cards, and so we didn't see them at this Champions Week. But I feel like we've learnt a lot in Series 6. We've learnt the strength in depth about the ADC, not just in the UK, but in Europe. And we've seen players that in the past we've seen here and have had okay appearances. They've turned them into runs, they've turned them into wins, and the future's looking very bright for this project.
Very much so, and it's great to see, you know, although we have lost people that have got their tour card, you know, the likes of Chris Lamb and the likes of Willie Borland, who did win weeks here, but obviously couldn't come to Champions Week. On the backside of that, we've seen people like Connor Scott and other talents, Darren Webster, that have come here, and then, you know, we get to enjoy them here at the Super Series. So it's a bit of a cycle, but what I love about it, the ADC players, when you think, from the semi-finals, we had 2 players, one from ADC Europe and one from the ADC. It's just a testament to it's working, it's doing good things, and it's great to see. And I think, you know, we're going to get another, you know, real big shining light coming through from the ADC very, very soon.
Do you think you can lift this trophy? Head over to dartsatlas.com and you could be a part of those ADC qualifiers that will give you possibly the opportunity to play here at the Modus Super Series. And I suppose Scott Taylor's been a player that for so long has gone under the radar. He's not going to be allowed to do so now. But what do you think this is going to do for him in terms of a springboard?
Yeah, it's just massive, isn't it? It's what everyone that comes here is working towards. It gets you noticed. It's not just the check, it's not just the title, although they are the key things, especially in the moment, but it's what can happen after it, the confidence you can take from doing it, the fact that you're one of those very few elite names engraved on the trophy, and then perhaps some endorsements and some sponsorships. You know, lots of things can happen off the back of it, and I for one, hope they do.
Do you know what? It's been good fun, hasn't it?
It's been wonderful. I've really thoroughly enjoyed my week here.
Well, Laura, thank you very much for your company. Thank you to everybody for their company as well, and for you at home for joining us, not just tonight, but throughout the course of 13 weeks. And I suppose the simple question is, what have we learnt in Series 6? Well, we know the strength in depth in terms of the ADC is as strong as ever. There's players of the past that are hoping to turn themselves into big names, and there's new names emerging. And the good thing about Series 7 is we're going to get some new names to come, some players who dropped off the PDC Pro Tour at the back end of 2023, some new ADC stars that are looking to emulate the likes of Tom Sykes. But as far as Saturday night at Champions Week is concerned, well, it's Scott Taylor who was the Superman at the Super Series. Bye from us.